What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing a different video, putting the camera down, and I'm answering some of you guys' questions. I actually posted a picture on Instagram the other day. I did a story too, and I was like, yo, ask me whatever you want. You know, a lot of new subscribers here, a lot of new followers on Instagram, and there's a lot that you guys just don't know about me, both on the photograph side and just the lifestyle side. So I thought it would be a good time to kind of reintroduce myself to all you new faces. And yeah, let's get into some of those questions. So the first question is from Aaron GR4, and he asks, top tips to gain Insta followers. To be quite honest, Aaron, I'm trying to figure that out myself. My top tip though will probably just be to engage with your community. I wrote a blog post a little while back, and it's called Engagement is Content. And I think that's such an important read because a lot of people think the only way to create content is by posting new images every day. Truthfully, you can create content by commenting on other people's images every day, and that will bring them to your page and they can see the content that you already created. It's not hashtags, it's not tagging other street photography or whatever you're into, curators. It's actually talking to people and getting to know them. I have a couple friends who have way less followers than me, but they get way more likes on their pictures because they actually know their audience. And that's why I'm doing things like this. So when you guys see my picture, you'll have a closer relationship to me. It'll make you want to like it more. It'll make you want to comment more. So yeah, just keep engaging and keep creating content and do what you want other people to do to your stuff. So if you want somebody to comment, you want somebody to like, you want somebody to share, make sure you're doing that as well. I think that's like the 80-20 effect or rule, or not sure what it's called. If you Google it, I'm sure you'll find out. The next one is from Jamal Joseph. He asks, is the Lumix for street 4K shooting? I'm plotting on the bodies. I think what he's asking is the Lumix camera a good option to do street photography in and shoot 4K video. Yeah, I think it's a great option if you're only doing those two things. You find yourself doing anything professionally where you're gonna need low light, Lumix probably isn't the best option, but in terms of just shooting, it takes great photographs and it is excellent 4K video. So definitely a good option. You get a lot of bang for your buck there. And the lenses are actually cheap and small, which is what the whole mirrorless revolution was supposed to be about. So I'm glad they're sticking to that aesthetic. Mind Art Creativity asks, what do you think about Nikon and Canon's 4-frame cameras? I don't look at anything Nikon. I'm just not a fan of their aesthetics, so I have no idea what those specs are about. I did see the price was pretty outrageous, so without looking at it, probably gonna be a no for me. In terms of Canon, I think they did a really good job at coming out with something that was similar to what Sony already has. They did a really good job competing. They didn't put too much into it because I understand they probably have to, make the next, Mark II exciting. A lot of people were bummed out about the 30, frames per second 4K only. That wasn't a big deal to me. It's not a video camera. I think that's going to be their A7 line, and then I'm pretty sure they'll come out with a video version and then a photography or studio version. But yeah, I think they did a great job in just creating a solid product that checked a lot of boxes. I do think they're way too expensive, and I would obviously get a Sony over any of those cameras. One thing people would overlook, in my opinion, was that 24 to 70 f2 lens. That was crazy. That's going to be something that I'd be interested in playing around with for a short period of time. So Una Chica in Paris, sorry if I butcher that, she asks, explain the difference between expensive gear and not expensive gear. I think it depends on what gear you're talking about. If you're looking at an expensive camera lens, that's probably gonna have better build quality, better optics. Typically it's gonna be a little bit faster. It's just gonna allow you to do more without working as hard. And if you're looking at cameras, I guess that's kind of the same. They're gonna have that build quality. Expensive cameras are gonna likely have weather sealing, and they're just gonna make what you do on a day-to-day basis a lot easier. While cheaper gear makes things a lot harder. It's gonna not have as large as a sensor. It may not be as good in low light, and the build quality might be subpar. Maybe it's not a good camera to take out in the rain, or on a road trip where there's a lot of dust or rough terrain. It's going to need to be taken care of a little bit more. And that's pretty much my experience with the units. In terms of just taking pictures, I think, if you're in good light, it really doesn't matter what camera you use. If you're doing street photography and that's all you're doing, then I think a cheap camera is actually probably going to outperform an expensive camera, because you're not so afraid of damaging that product. You're not babying it, as opposed to, being out there with a $3,000 system and you're like, this guy looks kind of mean. I don't want him to grab my camera and break it. Yeah, it all depends on what you're doing. If you want to talk a little more about that, let me know what field you're in. If you're doing portraiture, if you're doing street, if you're doing events, if you're doing weddings, and then we can kind of see what's the right combo for you. Richter asks, what's your favorite season, weather to shoot in? I'm probably going to say winter. I feel like I'm less productive in the wintertime because this is the wintertime, but I feel like I get a spark of creativity around that time. People tend to like layer up in the wintertime. They have like boots. There's something about like that cold, you know, vibe. Like if somebody's walking down the street and it's just film and it looks like very dark and lonely, like you're like, man, that person's cold. Or you can look at that picture and kind of feel like what they're going through. Like, man, they must be really cold. Or I'm definitely more active in the summertime, but I feel like I'm more creative and I'm more inspired in the winter. So yeah, winter vibes all day. Sarah asks, why black and white? If you guys haven't noticed, I actually just started posting color photographs on my Instagram, and yeah, it's been a huge change, and I've gotten a great response from it. But the reason that I used to shoot black and white was because I just really didn't know how to edit that well. I would take a lot of pictures in various, you know, settings, and they would just all look really different. And when I put them on a timeline, it just didn't look like cohesive, you know, in like a grid format. Some would be like very warm, some would be very cool, some would be very grainy, and it just looked like I didn't know what I was doing. And that's because at the time that I didn't. So I switched to black and white because that was just an easier editing process for me. And black and white is just gonna obviously, you know, have a better aesthetic, you know, within that grid format. Now I have preset packs. I kind of have an idea of what I want my image to look like. So I'm not afraid to edit and post color images. And I'm happy that I made the switch because I feel like the color just gives my photographs a lot more in depth, and they just add like those extra layers to it. And yeah, you know, it's gonna work better for me in the long run, I feel. So we're done with the black and white vibes. I did that for 3 years. It was a great experience, but you know, in order to grow my brand and what I'm trying to do, I think color is the way to go. All right, we got 10% battery left, so I picked the best time to do this video. So Sweet Potato asks, what's your key advice on taking photos of strangers without freaking them out? This may sound very rude, but I'm not worried if people get freaked out or not. Like, I can't control somebody else's actions. If they get freaked out, you know, I'll apologize. Hey, my bad. I take pictures of, like, you know, people in Detroit, you know, whatever my story is, whatever your story is. But I think you just got to go get the photograph. You can try to be a little more visible, maybe like do it discreetly. But I feel like when I'm trying to be invisible, when I'm trying to hide behind the pole, like that just comes off as more weird. So I think the best advice is to go out there and just get the shot and, you know, apologize later. So again, that might be a little bit rude. People might disagree, but that's my approach. Joe Lopez asks, have you tried shooting film yet? Yes, I tried shooting film. I always get 36 exposures. I never make it past like 12 exposures. The idea of being limited to 36 pictures makes me never take a picture. Like I don't want to waste the film, you know. I know me and you are supposed to link up and do that. We will. We'll make a whole video about it, but yeah, 36 pictures is a lot of pictures in one day. But it's also not that many, if that makes sense. So I've just kind of been staying away from it. Lauren asks, what got you into street photography? I probably answered this question like 5 times, and each time I gave a different answer. But today's answer is probably gonna be accessibility. I bought a camera, I wanted to take pictures, and I had like big plans for my camera. Like, I'm gonna take over the city, I'm gonna do this and do that. But that took practice, and I wasn't given the opportunities to practice. So I just started taking pictures of what was available, and that was people, and it kind of became a thing. If I wanted to be a portrait photographer and I couldn't get anybody to pose for me, I would just go outside and be like, hey, can I take your picture? And then I would practice my settings and, you know, kind of try to figure out a style that way. That's what got me into it, and now it's just like my thing. Mr. Breeny asks, how much time do you spend editing each photo? And what settings do you usually use to tweak the photos? I don't spend that much time editing photographs. I use a Windows computer, and it's kind of slow going like to each photo. That's probably the thing that takes the longest. But I use presets. So I have, for street photographs, I use the Street is Talking Volume 1 and 2 preset pack, linked down in the description below. And yeah, from that's like my foundation. And I'll kind of just like adjust exposure and shadows and highlights and, you know, maybe 4 minutes on each photograph. It's not an in-depth process. If it has like very weird lighting or overexposed, maybe 15 minutes, but anything over like 15 minutes I just deem as a bad photograph, and I just move on to the next one. So, you know, 4 to 15 minutes if that helps. I know that's kind of vague, but 4 to 15 minutes. Catherine Korami asks, how do you balance being a dad, doing freelance work, and still taking street photography photos for pleasure? Just a lot of support. You know, people within my core group of friends and family, they know this is important to me, so everyone's there to kind of help me out. You know, if I need somebody to watch my daughter, then they got my back. If I need to do a freelance gig, then, you know, I try to let people know beforehand. So it takes a lot of, you know, scheduling and organization and follow through. You know, I think we have a lot more time than we believe we do. If you just like get shit done, then you're able to do everything. But if you're like trying to get shit done and like lay down in between and like watch a TV show, then it obviously becomes a lot harder. And like, let's just say like I wasn't able to have that support and I wasn't able to, you know, have a lot of spare time, then, you know, you gotta fit things in between the cracks. So that's where the street photography at lunch project came from. I didn't have a lot of time during that, you know, year to shoot. So every day at lunch, I would just go out and take pictures, you know, as opposed to eating. And then I would just like eat at my desk. So there's a lot of different ways to maneuver. You know, you don't have to have an hour-long street session. You can, you know, fit in taking photographs by just simply bringing your camera with you. If you get like a small point and shoot or a small pocket camera, then there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to get a couple photos a day. Yeah, just not making excuses and, you know, being as active as possible. All right, we have one last question, and it's from Tarico. He says, I hate to ask a question about gear, but for a freelance photographer, he currently has the Sony A6000 and looking to upgrade to the A7 Mark II. What lens would you recommend? He also cited that he did wedding, portraiture, and food photography. I'd probably just go with a zoom lens, to be honest. You know, I think those are just the most versatile lenses. I used to swear by prime lenses, but now I'm just all zooms because it just makes sense. You know, if you're doing a couple different things, if you're into a couple different styles of photography, then you're gonna wanna have a kit that can, you know, balance that out. For me, with my Sony, I shoot with this is a lot of hand movement. I shoot with the Tamron 28-75. I think it's just the most versatile lens, and it gives you the most bang for your buck. It has a constant 2.8 aperture. 28 is pretty wide to do everything that I do, and 75 is more than enough zoom to, you know, capture some wedding photographs or, you know, whatever you're into. So yeah, you can have that 28, that 35 millimeter, even that 50 millimeter for that food, you know, in street photography. And then you can have that, you know, 75 for when you're trying to do like the wedding portraits, and that 28 if you're like capturing the ceremony. So I think just going with the zoom lens is going to be your best bet. I think a lot of people should just buy stuff and try it out. You know, I think we spend a lot of time researching lenses and cameras and what should we get, what's the best lens optically, and which one has more aperture blades, or which camera has more focus points. And like at the end of the day, you can just buy that camera and take it back. You can just buy that lens and return it. Trial and error is the best way to figure out what you like. Maybe rent one. What's 90 bucks to, you know, determine if you like a lens or not? You know, take that 90 bucks, rent it for 3 days, shoot it with a weekend, and then boom, you got that peace of mind. Let's just start trying more things out. You know, I try every camera out that I want, and then I go back and make a decision. And people are like, you know, you keep switching your camera, you're indecisive. Like, no, I'm just unsure. And, you know, you gotta try stuff and you gotta see if you like it and see if it fits you. You know, the Sony might be a great camera optically and it might have low light, but you might hate the grip on it. You might think the menu's awful. The Tamron is a great lens, but maybe the autofocus isn't fast enough for what you do versus what I do. So let's start trying more things out. You know, everyone should be doing reviews because it's just gonna help us get to that next level. All right, guys, so that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Definitely wanna do more Q&As, more sit-downs. So throughout like the future videos and vlogs and whatever I decide to create, definitely keep asking questions so I can feature it in the next one. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Peace.
All them nights I stayed up trying to